Hey, what is up? We are collabing once again, the Leafs Convo podcast for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. It is Sunday, January 17th, 2021. I'm Norm in London, along with my podcast partner in crime, Michael Piaggello in Cheektowaga, New York, where the aftermath of that Bills win is pretty calm and cerebral. Michael, good morning.
Yeah, not really. The Bills Mafia was marching in the streets, and they haven't been to an AFC Championship game since I was 25 years old. So I mean that's a long time ago. And there's a reason to be happy, but I saw people firing off fireworks last night after the game. It's like, okay, you haven't won anything. You got to get to the AFC Championship game. You're probably going to have to beat Kansas City in Kansas City, and then you're probably going to have to beat either Aaron Rodgers or Brady or Drew Brees. I mean, it's a great season, and after a long time of being a joke, it's nice that the Bills are a really good team and bringing pride to the city. But celebrate when they've won something.
You were so results oriented, Mike. Can you not enjoy this?
No. No, I'll celebrate. I had a little sip of Kentucky bourbon last night after the victory, but it was just like, okay, I celebrated the victory. That's one step, one more step, but it'll be the whole bottle if they win the Super Bowl.
And we would like to live stream that, and then have you do a podcast with me in the aftermath of your thirst being quenched by a Super Bowl and all of that alcohol. The Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. So those Maple brothers, a 3-2 winner in Ottawa in the second of back-to-backs with the Capital Gang, losing the night prior. The Sens hadn't played in, 300 days, and they took it to the Leafs pretty good on Friday, but the Leafs bouncing back. Joe Thornton scoring his first in the blue and white. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner contributing. That line looked great.
Well, after two pedestrian games, that top line really took that to heart and played well last night in Canada. I thought Thornton was very creative. The nice goal that got the Leafs on the board, and you can see that elite passing ability that's been apparent for over 20 years. But it was a little bit of a concern. Not that nobody thought that Austin Matthews wasn't going to score a goal, but usually he's a pretty quick starter. And the first two games, I didn't think he was very impressive. But last night, him and Marner were magical, and that was enough to get the victory. It's like that top line didn't show up the first two games, and in Game 1 against Montreal, it was mostly Nylander and Tavares, and then in Game 2, they get up 2-1. And they just stopped playing, and Sheldon Keefe and some of the players were just baffled by, all of a sudden they get the lead. They had a good first half of the game, and all of a sudden everything just shut down. And that is reminiscent of last year, where they have these gaps of 5-6 minutes where they give up 2 or 3 goals, and when they come out of that, they're down 4-1 or 4-2 or something like that, and then they can't recover. So that is something that through the season has to be eliminated. Sheldon Keefe is aware of it, and I think they did a good job eliminating that on Saturday with the win against Ottawa.
Mike, you have been accused of being pessimistic and negative in the past. When looking at the two games the Leafs and Sens played in Ottawa, going forward towards the Jets encounter at Scotiabank Arena Monday, which game are you going to focus on? The 4 unanswered goals in that Friday contest the Sens got against the Leafs, the way they just fell apart, or the way the Leafs put 40 shots at Matt Murray on Saturday, winning 3-2, the top line coming alive.
Well, I can't not look at both of them, because the resilience of bouncing back and playing the way that they should on Saturday was encouraging. But like I said, what they did in the second half of the game on Friday is very reminiscent of what's happened in years past. And Sheldon Keefe said it after the game. I'm sure there were goals that Freddie Anderson would have liked to stop, but he wasn't solely responsible. Their defense was inept. I mean, the top pairing of TJ Brody and Morgan Riley were a collective -7. They were not
Awesome.
clear. Yeah, they were not clearing the front of the net. They were allowing a big, strong Ottawa forward group to cause havoc and
Hmm.
screen Anderson. And it's tough. It's tough to be able to stop pucks when you can't see
Hmm.
them or when you're being harassed. So, I know there's a lot of criticism out there about Freddie Anderson. This team will only go as far as Freddie Anderson takes them. That's what people have to realize. And if people don't think he can do that, then you're probably looking at a disappointing season. But I think Anderson, we know he always starts slow. I said on Twitter, this, October equals January,
Hmm.
because Anderson always started slow in October. So it's probably going to take him most of this month to really get up to speed. But I think, he'll
Yeah.
be pretty strong.
But it was Jack Campbell with 17 saves in the Saturday affair against the
Mm-hmm.
Sens. I don't go on Twitter too much these days. I'm semi-retired, but I did check up on the Leafs Sens timeline. And because Jack Campbell was successful in the third game of the season, coming off the back of a Freddie Anderson loss on Friday, you do have people suggesting that Jack Campbell be the number one guy. I'm with you. I think Freddie Anderson is the number one on this team. But would it hurt to play Campbell more? It's like substantially more.
I think they will. I think that, it's a 56 game season. I don't think you're going to see Freddie Anderson playing 45 games. I think the
Mm-hmm.
breakdown is going to be sort of 35-21, something like that. Campbell is going to be an extremely important part of this season. I mean, there was a graphic that was shown on Hockey Night in Canada. I don't know how many years it reflected, but the Leafs were like second or third worst in terms of backup wins with backup goaltenders. That has
Mm-hmm.
to change. And I think that the fact that Campbell, since he was acquired from Los Angeles, now I think this was his fourth victory. He had three last year. And he was acquired in like mid to late February. So, 4 wins in 7 starts is very good for a backup goaltender. And I think that he's going to get more work. He's not going to get a lion's share of work. It's not going to be a 1A,
Mm-hmm.
1B scenario, but he is going to get a significant amount of work because I think they believe he's a quality goaltender.
So you don't think that Sheldon Keefe will ride the hot hand?
No, I think he's going to go back to Freddie Anderson on Monday against Winnipeg if that game goes off, because Winnipeg did have their practice canceled yesterday. They're practicing this morning because of COVID concerns.
Yep.
But if they do play on Monday, I think it'll be Anderson. But I think you're going to see Campbell not just in back-to-back scenarios. I think you will see them drop him in occasionally when before Anderson would play. And if you saw yesterday, they gave Anderson the full day off, meaning he didn't get dressed. He wasn't in the lineup at all. They had Aaron Dell backing up Jack Campbell. So I think that's going to be a practice as well.
OG's Converts, let's have this discussion in community on the YouTube channel. What do you think of the Leafs goaltending situation? I'll throw up some questions. We'll do a poll. I would love to get your take, a little bit of interaction on your part. Never hurts. Just looking at the stats from the 2 games the Sens and Leafs played over the past 48 hours. The Leafs outshoot the Sens on Saturday 40-19. The Sens winning the hustle stats. Should that game yesterday have been 3-2, considering the Leafs outshot the Sens by such a large margin?
Well, I think that's reflective. And I was someone who advocated the Leafs, if they were going to go for a goaltender not named Freddie Anderson for this year, that Matt Murray was the guy that they should go after. And I thought that Ottawa made a good trade for him. They gave up a second-round pick and a prospect, signed him to a 4-year contract, and I think he's a great goaltender. And he played really well yesterday, and he played pretty well in the game on Friday. So Ottawa got themselves a goaltender, and Ottawa, with the acquisitions that they made before the season, adding veterans like Stepan and Gabranson, they're not going to be a cakewalk anytime they play. It's going to be tough, and they're a big team too, so they're going to make it. They out-hit the Leafs. They let in a lot of the statistics that you want to focus on, but getting a split was, I think, tougher for the Leafs than I think they expected, and a lot of people expected. But Ottawa is not going to be a pushover.
What do you make of the Nylander-Tavares line dominating in the second game of the season and then kind of slipping into the background last night, the Marner-Matthews line alternating with that second line in terms of who's bringing it. We see through social media how player versus player can be ginned up, and one player's the hero, the next is the zero, depending on how they do on a particular night. So you go to Friday, it's Nylander's the guy, Marner sucks. Last night, Marner's the guy. The second line really didn't do too much. What do you make of that? Is that just the way hockey goes, and people need to wrap their head around the fact that your favorite player isn't going to be running at full tilt every single night? And look, this is a team effort.
Yeah, there are very few games where everybody is on. If that's the case, then they would win the game 8-2 instead of 3-2. It always seems to be okay. Marner and Matthews are on, then the second line sort of takes a back seat, or the second line scores like crazy, and then in the first two games the top line was not a factor. You get your occasional goal from the third line, like they did with Kerfoot on Friday, and they'll get an occasional goal from the fourth line as well. But most of the time, it's going to be one of those lines. And that's the key. It's like one of those lines has to be on for the team to win. Both of those lines leads to a blowout. If neither of them are on, then you lose. So that's the focus, is that one of those lines has to be in on it to be able to win.
Isn't that good though? There's a diversity through the lineup and an ability throughout the lineup to not only contribute but to be a game changer. You're not relying on the top three guys who have to play 25, 30 minutes as the season becomes more hotly contested. You can go to that second line, and we're going to have periods where Nylander, Tavares, Vesey, or whomever is added to that mix will be the de facto number one, or they will be in play and contribute in support of the number one line that we know, consisting of the two guys, Matthews and Marner.
The one area that we're sort of ignoring, because we're talking mostly 5-on-5, is special teams. And yesterday, that long penalty kill where there was a 5-on-3, and Campbell made a fantastic save on that penalty. But it was Ottawa didn't have many chances because the penalty kill was so good. I mean, penalty kill and the power play are going to be big keys for the season. Right now, you have two units with Matthews and Marner on one, and Tavares and Nylander on the other, and they're sort of fighting back and forth for who's going to be the dominant. And that competition is good, but eventually it may end up where they have that all-in-one power play like they did last year.
But we've seen it already.
They've mixed and matched, and that's the other thing. It's like last night you saw Simmons playing with Matthews and Marner at a point. Thornton is not going to be out there all the time, and Keefe seems a lot more willing than Mike Babcock to shake things up. Move Spezza up to top six for a shift, move Hyman in with Matthews and Marner. He will constantly do that, and I think that keeps things fresh. I mean, these are players who have played with those guys before, so I think that, and they're going to be used to that situation. So I think that's conducive to, if there are injuries or things of that nature, that they'll be used to playing with those players. And as we know, there was an injury last night that affected things.
Looking at the way this roster is configured, comparative to seasons past, with the Simmons, with the Thorntons, with the Brodies, with guys like Morgan Riley having a bit of a down year and trying to rebound. I'm optimistic and encouraged by what this team is capable of as a whole. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, will they be able to rise to the next level with the reinforcements who've come in? They should, but in particular, special teams. I mean, if this team ever got its shit together with the power play and got 4, 5, 6 opportunities a night, I mean, this team could be effing deadly.
And you just pointed it out. The problem is not the effectiveness of the power play, because last year they were top 10. The previous year, I think they were 3rd or 4th in the league. The problem is getting opportunities. They don't draw penalties. It's for some reason, I think they were the lowest in the league in terms of drawing penalties. Now, I think veteran players like Thornton, veteran players like Simmons, who likes to stir things up, guys like Hyman and Kerfoot, they might be able to be factors in terms of drawing more penalties. But it also has to come from the star players. If it's Marner or Matthews, I'm not to say dive, because I'm not advocating that, but if you're feeling a tug, go down. You might get the call. Now, most of the time they're saying, okay, I'm going to go to the net and score, and if they can do that, great. But the power play is very effective. They got a lot of weapons. They just need to get more opportunities to make it more effective.
It would take the Leafs to another level and add a little bit of breathing room for Freddie Anderson or Jack Campbell and the group, who are collectively trying to make the team's defensive game more professional. You look at goals for and against after 3 games, and yes, it's only 3 games, but it is reminiscent of Leaf seasons from the past. Many goals for, many goals against. The Leafs have a league-leading 11 goals so far this season, but guess how many they've given up, Mike?
Yeah, I know. Again, it just seems that no matter what the mantra is from the organization, we're going to get tough. We're going to get more two-way. That it always comes back to them being an offensive juggernaut and giving up a lot of goals, and that is not winning hockey. Tampa Bay could shut it down. St. Louis could shut it down. Boston could shut it down. That's the key. And if they eventually get that, and that's what Sheldon Keefe is promoting, and that's what he's asking for, then they will be successful. And if they try to run and gun, I picked Edmonton to miss the playoffs, not because they can't score goals, but because they can't stop the puck and they can't play defense. And it's not that type of play. If your offense is overwhelming, you have a chance to make the playoffs, but do you have a chance to really succeed in the playoffs? I don't think so, because offense dries up in the playoffs. Everything gets clogged up, and we saw a less talented but more playoff-ready team in Columbus shut down the Leafs in that series in the qualifying round.
OG's Converts, this is the Leafs Convo podcast for Oak Ridge Ford, oakridgeford.com. We're on YouTube. We're on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Thank you so much for being a part of this project. If you haven't hit the subscribe button on YouTube, please do that for us. We're getting real close to 3,000 subscribers. My daughter's a young YouTuber, Mike, and she's a fan of yours, fan of mine, fan of the Leafs. She's got her own little page that she's working on, and she always reminds me that 3,000 subscribers isn't that many. And it's tough living in this household. Big shout out to Michaela Garashi. She has joined the Leafs Convo Twitter team, taking over at the Leafs Convo too. So if you're on social media, give us a follow. Thanks so much for joining the team, Michaela. We're going to have so much fun. As I always say, should be good. Mike, before we go, just a couple more things on Joe Thornton. 2 points, 14 minutes of ice time, 14 minutes, 5 seconds, 2 and change on the power play, 3 shots on goal. We're going to have a Thornton Watch on this podcast throughout this season, because I'm really interested to see how Sheldon Keefe uses him. When Marner is playing, almost 24 minutes, Matthews close to 22, at some point they have to disconnect from Thornton. But for the time the 3 of them are on the ice, they are going to be very productive. So far, how do you feel about Keefe's management of Thornton's time on the ice, playing with those 2 guys, and what do you think it suggests for how that crew will work together going forward?
Keefe, after the game, discussed the fact that it was the second of back-to-back, and minutes for Thornton were down slightly from the game on Friday. So clearly, in those situations, he's going to spot him more because he's 41 years old, and that only makes sense. And I think I mean, that could mean like somebody like Spezza stepping up, because usually he plays 9 or 10 minutes a night and he can play more minutes. So I think they're going to carefully manage Thornton, but I also think they love the creativity and the passing ability that he brings on the wing with Matthews and Marner. So they have to manage it carefully. And that's going to lead to the kind of line juggling that we've seen with like Simmons or VC or whoever stepping up on those top two lines. Now that's going to be made more difficult by the injury yesterday, because Nick Robertson left in the first period after getting hit into the boards by Drake Batherson and didn't come back. And Sheldon Keefe after the game said it looks like it's going to take some time, and they're going to do an MRI today. If it's a long-term injury, which we hope it isn't, that means like an Alexander Barabanov, who he played 2 games and averaged under 5 minutes. They have to give a player like Barabanov a little more of an opportunity. So maybe it gives them a chance to sort of mix him in more, or somebody like Mikko Lehtinen, and they play with 7 defensemen. There's going to be this juggling of the lineup and of different players, and I think part of that is going to be getting a look at everybody. Part of it is going to be managing the minutes of players like Thornton.
You mentioned Spezza. Was he not 10 for 10 versus the team he used to captain on the faceoff draw?
Yeah, and all defensive zone draws. I really like, and I really
great.
like. Yeah, no, and then they realized that, and that's probably the reason why they wanted to get Matthews on the penalty kill. It was probably just because of the faceoffs. But I actually agree with Brian Burke that having your star player out there blocking shots from Shea Weber is not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of taking faceoffs, if you have Spets out there, if you have Matthews out there winning the draw and then getting off the ice, the percentage of giving up a power play goal goes down significantly if you win the defensive zone draw at the beginning, and you eliminate basically 20 to 30 seconds on the first power play.
Hey, it's a collective, right, Mike? Everyone's gonna have to pull their weight, play to a level that many haven't got to yet, but together it's possible they can. We are going to have podcasts following games that are going to sound pretty depressing, and that's just the way we do things. We call it like we see it, and we are a reflection, not necessarily of the fan base, but what's happening on the ice. My anticipation is that we're going to have podcasts and shows and collaborations going forward that are mostly based in excitement and optimism. So just let the games unfold and we'll go from there. The Jets at Scotiabank Arena on Monday. What are you expecting?
Well, I'm expecting Patrick Laine to be skating all over the ice and firing the puck with reckless abandon, because that's what he seems to be doing to start the year. Winnipeg is a good team. They've got a Vezina Trophy goaltender in Hellebuyck. They have good forwards in Scheifele and Wheeler and Laine. It's going to be a tough matchup. I think what the Leafs have to do is take advantage of what I consider the Achilles heel of the Jets, which is their defense. They don't have Bufflin anymore. They don't have Trouba anymore. They have some, decent sort of middle of the road type guys like Dylan DeMello, but their defense is not strong. So the Leafs forwards need to really attack the Jets blue line and be able to get some goals. And if they do that, they should win the game. But Winnipeg's not, again, there's not going to be any easy wins in this division. That's something we just have to get used to.
Let's have some fun. Mike, thanks for your time. Congrats on the big Bills win. Who knows? A Bills Super Bowl championship, a Maple Leafs Stanley Cup championship. You've waited long enough as a sports fan, Mike. I'm all for it if you can get not only one championship in the bag, but 2.
We can only hope.